Welcome to the Mana Drain. This is episode 45. I'm Moxborn again. We have a pretty awesome show planned for today. Basically, we're gonna get into some controversial topics in the Magic community that was reported on this past weekend, and then we're also gonna crack some packs. I've got 3 packs of Dominaria that we're gonna open up and try and hit some good cards this time. Last week wasn't too bad, so this week we'll actually hopefully get some good cards in there. But if you haven't watched the show before, this podcast is all about Magic the Gathering, talking about the card game, the releases, the different videos that come out, let's see what else is the tournaments that go on, whole bunch of good stuff. So we're up on YouTube. Let's see here. We are on twitch.tv/72DPI online. So anybody that is watching on Twitch, hi, how you guys doing? We're up on Mixer. So for all those of you who are on Xbox Live and you like to watch, you can tune in every Monday. And then we're also live on Facebook Live. That doesn't quite make much sense, but anyway, shout out to those guys in there watching. Looks like we've got Amanda, hi hun, and we've got Mom, what's up Mom? And Steve's in there. So appreciate you guys watching. Do me a favor, make sure if you're not subscribed to the YouTube channel, make sure you go over to youtube.com/72DPI, get subscribed. Helps out the channel a lot. So for those of you that aren't really big on the YouTubes, just simply having a Gmail account will suffice. Just head over to youtube.com/72DPI online, get subscribed, helps the channel out a lot. If you're new here and watch regular Magic content and commentary and things like that, and you like what you see, consider subscribing too. We really do appreciate it. What's going on, Kada, on Facebook Live? Really do appreciate you watching. Thank you. So we've got quite a bit going on. Kind of still getting over being sick a couple weeks ago with pneumonia. That kind of sucked. Kind of took the wind out of my sails a little bit, but feeling much better now. Kind of getting back in the groove. Of course, this past weekend, we got water in the basement, so you guys know the drill on that front, right? It usually sets the show back a week or whatever, but it happened on Friday night, so we were able to get the living side of the basement cleared and dry and all that stuff. Of course, what that means is pretty much everything and anything that goes over there or is in our storage side comes to the dry side, which is the office / podcast area. So we got a little bit of work to do there, but so excuse the mess. There's still a little bit of mess to be cleaned up, but at any rate, free indoor pool, absolutely. Unfortunately, it's just enough to be like, dang it, why can't this just, if it's gonna flood, like I'd like it to be like a nice 4 or 5 feet deep so that we can at least tread water in it or something. But anyway, let's see here. So let's go ahead and crack some packs first, and then we will go from there. Let's see here. Get out of the way there. So we got 3 packs of Dominaria that we're going to crack open. We're looking for, let's see, I got a couple cards picked out that I'm hoping we open. A couple money cards. We got cards sitting at $44. Teferi, which I actually just traded in my Teferi. That's sitting at $36. I got $29 for it. So that really isn't that bad. Bad Echo. Uh-oh. Why is there a bad Echo? That's not good. Is there a bad echo? Angel, what are you talking about? Now you got me worried. Let's see here. Oh yeah. How about that? There we go. My fault. Is that better? Testing 1 2. Testing 1 2. Why is there an echo? Well, I mean, when you go to the overhead cam, the overhead camera is like 30 feet up in the air, so there's gonna be an echo. I don't know what to tell you. I hope that's better. I'm assuming that's better. There we go. It sounds like it's better. Okay, my fault. There we go. We're good now. Echo. I'm just kidding. All right, so yeah, so I traded my Teferi. Got it's $36. It's worth 36. I got 27.28 for it, so not too bad. Chandra Pyromancer is another one that's 14, and then it just dwindles from there all the way down. The one that I was kind of curious as to why it hasn't gone up is Goblin Chain Whirler. This is a card that was in the Pro Tour. Last weekend or the weekend before, like it was like 7 of the top 8 decks. So all right, well, let's get into it. So we're gonna skip through the commons here and get right into the uncommons and go from there. Uncommon. All right, so here we go. All right, so we got Triumph of Gerard. This is a 2 mana enchantment saga. So this is one of the new card types. So you pay 1 white, 1 generic. It's basically when you play it, you get to put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control with the greatest power. So you don't really get to target a creature. It pretty much chooses it for you. Obviously, if it's tied between 2 different creatures, then you get to pick between the 2. So when you play it, you get that effect, and then on your next turn, when you draw a card, you get that same effect, and then the following turn, when you draw that third card, or the second card rather, you get to target creature you control with the greatest power, gains flying, first strike, and lifelink until end of turn. So not too bad. Let's see here. We've got Dampening Sphere. It's 2 generic artifact. If a land would be tapped for 2 or more mana, it produces additional colorless. Let's see here. Each spell player casts costs 1 more to cast for each other spell that player. So this is basically a lockout card. So you're basically saying for each spell you're casting, you're going to get an additional, it's going to cost you additional mana to pay it. So it's basically locking players out of the card. Hey, we got a Planeswalker. There we go. All right. Planeswalker. That's not too bad. It's not one of the good ones. It's not one of. Oh, I shouldn't say good ones. It's not one of the money cards, but it's one of the new ones. So Jala Ballard is 3 red, 2 generic, 5 Planeswalker. The first ability, so you can up her to 6 loyalty, and you get to have 3 red mana. You can spend it only to cast instant or sorcery spells. You can give her another +1, and discard up to 3 cards, then draw that many cards. And then her ultimate, which is her -8 ability, is, let's see here, you gain an emblem. You may cast instant or sorcery cards from your graveyard. If the card is cast this way, you from your graveyard exile it instead. So it's a pretty fun card, right? It's a good commander card, right? You get to cast spells multiple times for free. So then we got foil rare. Ooh, foil rare. Evra the Halcon Witness is 4 generic white lifelink, lifelink for 4. You can pay 4, exchange your life totals with Evra with her power. So this is good for a couple ways, a couple different variations. It's a good commander card. It's a great casual card. It doesn't see any form of play. It's too high maintenance. Because by the time you cast it, your life total is already dwindled down. So it's the Magic Christmas land of this is, of course, like, hey, I've got 20 life. I'm gonna exchange it. I'm gonna have 4 life, and she's gonna be a 20 power, 4 toughness creature. Unfortunately, she doesn't have any type of evasion. The nice thing, though, is if she connects, right, you're going to get your life total back, right? So you're going to go from 4, and then she's going to hopefully swing in for a damage, and she doesn't get removed. That's the worst case scenario. She's got lifelink, so you immediately get that life back. So it's just a temporary thing. So great for when opponents are tapped out, but not so great when, they've got removal spells. Let's see here. Then our next card, we get legendary creature, Elf Archer. This is Halera, the Fire Fletcher. It's 1 green, 1 red, 1 generic, 3/3 Trampler. And it says whenever you cast a spell, if that spell was kicked, meaning you pay an additional cost. I don't know if we got any kicked spells in here. Oh yeah, here we go. So like this Skin Witch, you can pay an additional 1 black and 3 generic to kick it. It gets an additional ability. So this says whenever you cast a spell, if it was kicked, put a +1/+1 counter on the Fire Fletcher. And then when it deals damage equal to the number of +1/+1 counters to each opponent. So that's a great way to win some win some points in Commander. Not really. That's a way to get people putting a target on your back for sure. So, all right. So we opened up a mythic rare in our first pack and a foil rare. That's not a bad start, right? Not a bad start. Let's see here. If I get the pack open, holy smokes. There we go. All right, so we're going to skip through our commons. All right. We got here, Spore Swarm. Create 3 1/1 green sapling tokens, instant speed. Not too bad. 3 blockers. You know, if you got some type of anthem effect, that's always a good thing, giving your creatures +1/+1. Let's see here. This is enchant permanent. Enchant permanent gets hexproof, and when enchant permanent leaves the battlefield, if it was historic, draw 2 cards. So it's kind of an investment card. So you know, it's kind of difficult because if you're giving it hexproof, then you're not going to be, it's like spot removal is like pretty much is out of the game, right? So if you put this on like a legendary creature, or excuse me, like if you put this on like an artifact, most destroy artifact spells are destroy target artifact. Therefore, those would become useless. They couldn't at all be used as far as targeting that artifact. However, if you put this on a creature, your opponent still has the opportunity to board wipe. Now, if you have a way to sacrifice, or maybe you put it on a sacrificing artifact, then that's a possibility. You know, to kind of give yourself 2 extra cards when that card becomes useless. Isolated Chapel's next. This is their dual lands for the set. It comes into play tapped unless you control a plains or a swamp. And you can add 1 white or 1 black for tapping. And then our legendary creature, of course, because every pack has one, is Garna the Blood Flame. This is 3 generic, 1 black, red. It's a 3/3 with flash, meaning you could play it during your opponent's turn, or when you know, at any point during the game, rather. Then it says when he enters the battlefield, return to your hand all creature cards in your graveyard that were put there from anywhere this turn. Other creatures you control have haste. So this is a great card, you know, especially in limited where there's cards that remove creatures. You can flash us in it during your opponent's turn. Get back things that your that you want, that your opponent got rid of. Now, keep in mind they go from the graveyard. They go from your graveyard to your hand, so they don't go back into play. That's the one downfall for that card. If they were back in play, then that card would be disgusting. But 5 mana for a 3/3 is just kind of it's a little rough. All right, so not as good a pack this go around. We're looking for let's get a Mox Amber. Come on, Mox Amber. We're not going for the huge dollar amount. We're going for the $10 one. We got this. All right, so let's see here. Syncopate. Oh, great card. Syncopate's a great card. So it's a good start. Let's fast forward to our uncommons. Pack number 3. Champion of the Flame. This is 1 red and 1 generic for a trampler. That's a 1/1. And it gets +2/+2 for each aura and equipment attached to it. So this is a great card for limited. I think during the preview season last go around, I called it a trap because you don't want to get 2 for 1, right? So you put this down on the battlefield, your opponent's going to be like, well, I'm not going to kill that right now because obviously you have something to put on there. Because who wants a 1/1 with trample? That doesn't do anything, right? But on the other hand, when you play something on there, now your opponent's like, now I can get rid of 2 things for my 1 card, therefore 2 for 1. So it's kind of a trap. But there are enough good enchantments in this set and good auras and good equipment spells to actually make this a viable option. So good card. Settle the scores: 2 generic, 2 black, sorcery, exile target creature, put 2 loyalty counters on a planeswalker you control. This card is playable and limited every time. It's great removal, even if you don't have the planeswalker, if it's just exiling a creature. And we got garbage rare. That's okay. The First Eruption. This is another saga card. So when you pay 2 generic and 1 red, when you play it, it deals 1 damage to each creature without flying, hands down. And then when you draw a card on your next turn, you add 2 red mana. And then when you draw a card on your following turn, sacrifice a mountain. If you do, the first eruption deals 3 damage to each creature. So pseudo board wipe, Anger of the God style card. It's got some really good artwork that you can't see. I need to work on getting some overhead lighting in here. That's bad. But some pretty cool artwork. Garbage red, though. Hey, look, and then we got a Yargle. It's a 9/3 for 5 mana. That's it. It's a great limited card. All right, well, kind of got some duds there. We'll use the Isolated Chapel. That's a given. We'll use that for sure. I'm sure there's a red commander deck somewhere that we can use Ballard or Jaya Ballard. So, not too bad. Much better than last week, though. Much better than last week. All right, so let's switch gears here. Bloop. All right, so I kind of wanted to talk about, it's kind of like the topic of the evening, is cheating in Magic. And this kind of goes, this goes kind of twofold. Like cheating in Magic, there's a couple different things when people hear cheating, and most people think like drawing too many cards or putting things into play that don't belong there, or putting stacking your deck is really kind of, stacking your deck seems to be like the most common one when people think of cheating. Like, when you're shuffling or whatever, you're putting all your good cards to the top or whatever the case may be. And, obviously for competitive Magic, they've instilled the whole, your opponent has to shuffle, you need to offer your deck to your opponent for randomization. So that kind of bit that in the dust. But there was like a counter cheat to this original cheat. So rather than stacking your deck, you are now stacking your opponent's deck, right? Because each person exchanges decks and then they shuffle. So like one of the most common, the most common is people will sit here shuffling their deck like this, but they'll look at the bottom card, right? So like they'll just take a glance at it, right? And what they'll stack is like, okay, so I look at the bottom card, it's a creature, so I'm going to shuffle, and then boom, that Timberwolves is back on top of my deck, right? And then, oh hey, look, there's another Timberwolves, so I'm going to shuffle very carefully and then put that one back on top. And hey, look, there's another Timberwolves on top. I'm not very good at it. There it is. Timberwolves on top. So ultimately what people were doing is they were stacking the person's deck to their disadvantage, right? So they would put whatever 7 card, like it wouldn't matter what 7 cards, they're either going to mana flood you or mana screw you, right? So they're going to give you 7 spells or 7 lands. And in most cases, it's easier because you have more spells than actual lands. So trying to shuffle until you find 7 lands is a little bit more difficult. But they would basically shuffle, till like a spell was on the bottom, and then put that spell. Their next shuffle would force that spell to the top. They would do that 7 times, and then all of a sudden they present the deck back to them for quote unquote randomization. And lo and behold, there is no randomization. There is now 7 spells, so therefore forcing your opponent to mulligan. So that was kind of like the perceived cheating overall in competitive Magic, the most popular cheat. Now, obviously, there was more cheating going on, and this past weekend there was a huge unveiling of, or I guess not unveiling, like more like ousting of 2 individual cheaters. And I kind of want to go into a little bit about what happened. And kind of talk about some solutions, right? Because everybody's all about like kind of like crucifying these people or whatever, and they shouldn't be allowed in Magic. And we need to conserve the sanctity of our game and blah 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 blah. But nobody's talking about solutions to these problems, right? There was a solution for stacking your deck, and that was presented to your opponent for randomization. And now there's no solution. No one has a solution for this randomization from your opponent. There's people that are considered machine shufflers or whatever, things like that, which might be a little over the top, might be expensive First of all, that's the first thing. And then, you could go a step further and say, like, well, you have to have a judge shuffle your deck. But at the end of the day, we gotta talk about solutions, right? That's where the conversation has to go, and that's kind of what I want to cultivate here as a conversation. Me and my very small audience, I want to cultivate a conversation about what are some solutions for these. So before we get into the solutions, we got to understand what the problem is. So what are the cheats? So the two cheats that happened this past weekend. The first one was, in my opinion, a more clear illustration of a cheater than the second one. So the first one was at where was it? This was at the recent SCG's Star City Games Standard Invitational. There was a gentleman, Zach. Just go by Zach. You can, if you want to fish for more information, you can. He was playing a blue-white control deck. And one of the cards that he's been playing, and trust me, he's been playing this all day. He has been playing the same deck all day. I believe this was the last game before going into day 2. So before he got eliminated from the tournament, this was the very last game, very last match for him to qualify for the next round, effectively getting him into the top 8, which would guarantee him, no matter where he placed, some type of money payout. Could be some small amount, could be a larger amount, right? But it got him into day 2, where there he could then continue on in the tournament. If he had lost, game over, you win no money, you're out of the tournament, right? So the stakes are pretty high, and for some people that can mean a couple different things. That could mean that you make mistakes. That could mean that you result to cheating. That might also result to making some decisions that you wouldn't normally make under the different types of circumstances. So the card that he was playing was called Chart a Course. This is a blue sorcery card from Ixalan. Let's see here. It costs 1 blue and 1 generic. And essentially what it does is it says draw 2 cards, then discard a card unless you've attacked with a creature this turn. Okay. So what's happening is essentially he's whenever he's discarding cards, right? And this kind of happens throughout the entire match. Whenever he's discarding cards, he's showing his opponent what he's discarding, right? Let's see here. I'll look at one other thing here before we go too far. Yeah. So anyway, at any rate, he's discarding cards, and he basically shows his opponent what he discards, right? Every time he plays the same card. Right, and then for this last round, this last turn that he's on, clearly his opponent has him beat. Like if he passes the turn, his opponent has enough damage on the battlefield, enough permanents to deal damage that will basically bring his life total below 0. So what he does is he, instead of discarding the correct number of cards, he discards incorrectly, right, and he discards to his discard pile. Doesn't show his opponent, and then when he gets called out on it, then he calls a judge over and points out, and that's the cheating part of it. That's the part that needs to stop. That we need to talk about how to stop this. But as soon as he's called out on it, he goes on the defense, or excuse me, goes on the attack and calls a judge over because one of his cards that his opponent's playing with is a double-sided card. I don't believe I have any on me. No, I don't. I don't have any of the transform cards. But essentially, on the back side, it's a 2-sided card. On the back side of the magic card, there is another part of what the card does. And traditionally what people do is Wizards will provide you, if you open one of those cards in a pack, they'll provide you, inside the pack will be a checklist card that has the traditional Magic the Gathering back on it. It'll have the checklist of all the cards that are double-sided in that set, so you can mark which one it is and then sleeve it up. That way, if for some reason your sleeves are transparent in any way, shape, or form, there's no question about which one it is. Well, apparently his opponent didn't feel the need to do that and was playing with card sleeves that might not have been as opaque as he thought, but Zach knew that he could point out that to a judge. The judge would issue him a game loss, and boom, he's in top 8. So and this is all on film, or this is all on screen, live on screen for the thousands of viewers that SCG brings in on Twitch, as well as the viewers there that are live at the actual show tournament. So the problem with this is he should have been eliminated for the misplay that he did prior, but since his opponent's playing with a illegal deck, or they call it marked cards, that's an instant game loss. So it's unfortunate that it swung in that direction, because Zach would go on to finish second place in the tournament. Let's see here. So let's see here. Let's go to their homepage, and let's just see how much money Zach won. Oh, come on. Why is this not working? Bum-ba-da-ba. Well, I apologize for the delay. This is not working. Huh. That's odd. Yeah, let's just do it this way. It's weird because SCG's standard, what you call it? That's modern. It's pulling up their modern one. That's really weird. Let's just do it this way. I got the URL right here. So let's do starcitygames.com/dex/121578. There we go. Yeah, was it Chart the Course? I believe it was Chart the Course. No, it must have been Strategic Planning, because it's look at the top 3 cards of your library, then put one of them into your hand, and the rest go to your graveyard. That's what it is. He was playing Strategic Planning, I believe. It was either that or Chart the Course. At any rate, well, now it's not going to let me get back to the actual event. I believe he placed second place. Events. Star City Invitational. There it is. Yeah, he finished second place for sure with blue-white gifts. Standard. So, at any rate, second place finish. Second place finish at a nationally recognized tournament. Nothing happened. Not a thing happened. Which is sad. I mean, it's really sad. It's unfortunate. So, it happens. Those things happen. And the thing is that they can be 100% avoided. That's the sad part about it, is they can be avoided. So the other tournament that was going on this weekend was Grand Prix. Where was the Grand Prix at? Grand Prix Copenhagen. Yeah, Grand Prix Copenhagen. So you had let's see here. So you had a player, Christian. I'm not even gonna try to pronounce his last name. So Christian was playing on camera in the GP, and he was playing a red deck versus his opponent was playing a white, obviously a white deck because he used Ixalan's Binding, which is a card that allows you to exile a target creature. So when Ixalan's Binding enters the battlefield, exile a target non-land permanent an opponent controls until Ixalan's Binding leaves the battlefield. Your opponents cannot cast spells with the same name as the exiled card. So what ultimately happened in this one is Christian's opponent cast Ixalan's Binding on his Hazoret, which is a great target. Hazoret's a god that basically is a, let's see here, is a 5/4 god. It's indestructible. It has haste, and I mean that right there is just enough. A 5/4 indestructible with haste is fantastic. But it also has a special ability or an alternate ability that's pay 2, 1 red, discard a card, and it deals 2 damage to each opponent. So it's a way to burn your opponent out. It blocks anything and everything for days. But anyway, so Christian's opponent, Ixalan binded his Hazoret, and maybe a turn or two later, he played another Hazoret, right? And his opponent should have said something. He should have noticed it, right? And he didn't. And the thing is, this is all caught on tape. It wasn't live. That's the one difference between these two. It wasn't caught on tape, or it wasn't caught live. It was caught on tape when they were basically when this cheat was caught. It was one in between their one session. So what ends up happening is they'll record all these games, right? Every game that's playing in the top 16, in the top 8 or whatever, top 16, they're recording for future use. So like, let's say their main event deck or main event viewing game or whatever that they choose to put on stream ends early, rather than having your audience wait for the next 30 minutes. They'll put another table up, or if there's no more tables, or let's say there's not enough time, they'll end up do what's called a fast view or whatever, and they'll basically speed up one of their recorded games that's either are just completed or from the last round, to kind of for enjoyment purposes. And then they'll have some voice commentary over top of it, just to kind of talk about what's happening and things like that for the audience. So that's when this came up. This is after there was no more live games to view. They're basically filling space. So, and the thing that happened was chat was all over it immediately, right? And then moments later, the commentary was all over it. They were like, "Oh well, he can't cast that. They'll catch it," and they never did. They never caught it. At least for the next couple turns. So what ended up happening is when the winning attack was going to happen, when Christian turned his guy sideways and attacked in for lethal, his opponent's like, "Oh, wait a minute, I've got Ixalan's Binding." Like, I think he even had his cards were like even scooped up, like he was scooping his cards up or whatever. And he's like, "Hey, wait, you've cast this. You can't cast this," right? He's already attacked with it once, brought him down to a small life total, not below 0, and then he was attacking with it again. Ergo, you shouldn't be at that, because you shouldn't have that second Hazoret on the battlefield. So they call a judge over, and ultimately it's they can't rewind the game, and and it's too late, because it's just too late. There's nothing they can do about it, because cards have been drawn. There's no way, and they just let the game continue, which is strange. And people, and there's going to be two sides to this, two camps to this story, right? People are saying, well, it's just a misplay, and even the commentary were kind of writing it off. They're like, well, Ixalan's Binding isn't really a majorly played card, so people don't really understand what it is. No, people do understand what it is. You're talking about players in the top 16 of a tournament that has hundreds of players competing for thousands of dollars. Like, this is something that they should be watching out for. So at any rate, let's talk about some solutions. That's what we're here about. That's what we're here to discuss. So, there's a couple different types of solutions that I think that Wizards can impose or that SCG can impose to make sure that this stuff doesn't happen again. And one could say like, oh well, they should just hire more judges, and that should just be the way it goes. Like top 16, there should be a judge at every table. I mean, you've got somebody there that's typing up what everybody's moves are, or there's somebody with a laptop typing something. Like that person's obviously paying attention to what the game is. Now I don't know if they're communicating to the moderators, or if they're communicating to the commentators. I'm trying to figure out. I don't know exactly what they're doing, and if they're too busy to pay attention to what's happening in the game, like they're not a rules lawyer or anything like that, then you need to have another judge, a judge there watching every play. With that being said, that does come with a cost. And we all know how Wizards is with the judge program and paying people for their time. So that's a touchy subject. We won't get into that. So I propose they've already got the technology recording this stuff, right? They've already got the technology recording these shows to where they can replay them live without breaking stream, with pretty much seamless at this point, right? They should be, if they're recording these shows, they should have someone watching those shows, right? And if not, then I think we should go to something kind of like what the NFL has with like a challenge system, right? So you've got in like the NFL, like if a coach thinks that a play wasn't called correctly or the ref made a mistake, they can throw up their challenge flag or whatever and basically challenge the call and try to get it overturned. And basically what happens is the game gets paused, right, and the ref goes over, and basically if I know my football correctly, which I probably don't, football fans out there will have to correct me if I'm wrong, if basically the call on the field stands is the norm, right? It's kind of like guilty or innocent until proven guilty. Like the call on the stand is true unless proven otherwise, right? Irrefutable evidence shows that the ref made a wrong call, and basically what they're looking at on this camera, is several different angles, right? Because you've got several different refs that kind of make their calls or whatever, and ultimately it's the head ref that makes the final decision. And this gives him, multiple angles or whatever to kind of see, like, okay, yeah, your knee was down before you got into the end zone, but the ball was broke the line, broke the plane or the end zone plane or whatever, so it's a touchdown or whatever, kind of like that. So if I lost any of my Magic friends out there, I apologize. So ultimately what I'm proposing or suggesting is, if you've got these cameras watching these streams, give every player, like, per round or per tournament, one challenge, right? And essentially what would end up happening, like in the NFL, going back to the NFL thing, if a coach challenged a play and the play on the field stood, right, your knee hit the ground and the ball did not cross that plane, the call on the field stands, that team was deducted a timeout, so they no longer had one of their 4 timeouts or whatever it is. Obviously, we don't have timeouts in Magic, and that's not a thing. I don't want that to be a thing because that'll make tournaments that much longer. But there's got to be some type of give there, and if you just give every player a challenge, right, that stops the gameplay, that gives the judge a chance to go and review what happened. And at the very least, right, if it was a mistake, right, in the case of this, it could have been a mistake, right? You have a Hazaret in play and you forget that your opponent, Ixalan binded your other one out, or maybe you thought, that it was because there's probably 2 or 3 of those types of enchantments that removes a creature from play, but doesn't stop you, like cast out doesn't stop you from playing the same creature over again. So like there is a small level of innocence there. I don't believe it was. No, not at that level of play. No, there's not. That's a pretty glaring error at that level of play. But at the very least, if you can challenge something like this, you should be able to challenge it and then go back to what the game state was at that point, right? So even in this example, since the and people are gonna say, oh well, they didn't realize it until it was too late. They've already that's 2 or 3 turns later and they already drew cards or whatever. So they have more known information than they did when the mistake was made. Like, yeah, but you can't tell me that those cameras don't see what creatures they had in their hands or what cards they had in their hands, right? We knew that. That's known information based on what the camera sees, because we all knew that as things were being played out. So what you do is you rewind to when that second Hazrat was played, put that Hazrat back in his hand, look at what cards he now has in hand versus what cards he had back then, take those cards out, put them back on top of his deck, shuffle the deck. Right? Now you have a randomized deck. You have recreated that instance, right? And the same goes for his opponent, right? The opponent that played the Ixalan's Binding, right? He's drawn cards. He puts those cards back, shuffles the library, bam, back to randomization decks, back to the game state where the second Hazrat's back in Alex Christian's hand, and continue on. Obviously, this creates an issue for some people where they're, it's like, okay, well, if I'm in the top 16, that's all well and good, but what about when I'm, at one of the hundreds of tables that there is no cameras available? Well, you can only do so much, and like the thing is, trying to keep the top 8 as pure as possible, right? Making sure cheaters, clearly Zach is a cheater, like that's like without a doubt, 100% guaranteed. Like I'm sorry, your style of play changed when you tried to execute the cheat, right? You can go back and look. These are the 2 cards I'm getting rid of. This is the one card I'm getting rid of. Don't look at it. Don't put it in my graveyard, right? So, and it was only at that point that you decided to point out the fact that the guy had a double-sided card in his sleeve. Like not when he played it, at the beginning of the game. That it wasn't a problem then, but when you decided to cheat and it didn't work out in your favor, like, oh wait, hold on, you got a double-sided card in the sleeve, game win for me. Sorry, doesn't matter if I try to cheat or not. You're cheating because you have a double-sided card in a sleeve that's not opaque. So it doesn't matter how opaque or not or transparent it is. Game loss. So at the end of the day, there's a couple different solutions to the issue. I feel that, if they've got the equipment already there and they're already recording things, which it's proven that they are, because, we saw one of these games played back for us without hesitation, without any type of break in stream. Like I said, it was very fluid. I feel like they should have this type of technology out on the floor for the head judge to look at and say, hey, okay, this is the problem, this is a warning, or this is a game loss, or here, let's recreate the game state at that point. That's just got to be a thing. That's it. That's all I'm saying. So I'm kind of curious what you guys have to say. Make sure you leave it in the comments below what your suggestions are to kind of stop this cheating in the competitive Magic scene. Because to be honest with you, this doesn't make someone that is, like, takes someone in my position, right? In my shoes. Very limited time to play Magic, right? And I'm talking play Magic for Friday Night Magic. Like, and these guys are playing Magic for, traveling purposes, like GPs and Pro Tours and things like that, and tournaments to get onto the Pro Tour. So they're playing literally, 40 hours a week, where I've got a full-time job. So someone like myself who doesn't spend a lot of time, like how does that look for someone like me, where I'm like, well, I could dedicate, more time to playing Magic to become better and move up in the, in the tournament scene, but that's going to require a time investment on my part. And why would I put that time investment in if they're not going to catch these simple cheats that are happening constantly? And how many do we not hear about, right? We're only hearing about these because they're on video recording. How often is it happening on, out on the other tables, right? People, stacking their deck, people that are stacking their opponent's deck, things like that nature. So yeah, I want to hear what you guys think in the comment section below. What, how does this make you feel? Is it, kind of worrisome? Is it just part of the game? Some people honestly have that vibe. Like, if I can, part of playing a card game is bending the rules and seeing what I can get away with. And if you can get away with certain cheats, then why wouldn't you, right? If it's not going to cost you any amount of money, like if you're, if I'm not going to get a lifetime ban from the tournament scene, like I'm just out $70. Right? If I could tell you that if you gave me $70 and I gave you an opportunity to win $10,000, it depends on the person. You're like, bend the rules a little bit. Yeah, why not? Right? So some people have that thought process, and it's, unless it's written in the rule book, unless it's something where, like, hey, if you're caught cheating one time, it's a three tournament suspension. Obviously, cross tournament's not going to be a thing, or maybe it's just like a 3-month DCI ban or something like that. And if you're caught again, boom, lifetime ban, you're done. But it keeps coming back to these cheaters are coming back into the game and things like that, and it's because it's profitable for them, right? And how does that make you guys feel? I'm kind of curious. So yeah, leave those comments down below. I'm kind of curious about what you guys think about the cheating that we just talked about. The resolutions. Do you have your own resolution? What do you guys think? And then also we got Core 19 coming out. Yeah, there was a whole bunch of previewed cards. They kind of went nutso with us. Like, they generally don't do this. They do they save the commons and all that crap for the very end, and they decide, like, oh, we'll give you the commons first, and then we're gonna blow your mind next week. So we'll be talking about that next week. I really do appreciate you guys watching. Make sure you head over to the YouTube channel, youtube.com/72DPI online. Get subscribed, leave a comment. Do me a huge favor, share the video, share the stream with everybody. It helps out tremendously. We are sitting at 48 subscribers. I appreciate every single one of you. Let's try to break that 50 and then move on to bigger and better things. Make sure you head over to our Twitch channel, twitch.tv/72DPI online. You can watch us live every Monday. Join in the chat. You can join in on Facebook Live. Like I said, you guys rock, and we will see you next week. Have a great weekend.